Okay, so we're going to, this is my data project for Math239, and I'm going to try to make it a lot shorter than I did last time. Last time it was 22 minutes. I'm going to try to break it down to hopefully less than 7. So let's go ahead and get started. The data I'm using is data gathered from the game Command & Conquer Rivals, and it's basically me going through my match history and collecting all this information here into an Excel spreadsheet. Um, with that, I decided to try to look at um, two particular hypotheses that I wanted to clarify. And the first one was try to find if there's an association between points being awarded and based on your win loss. And if there's the points that were being awarded were based on what your average level was. Based as you play the game, your opponents can have different levels. See, this one has a lower level than me, so um, I was awarded 20 points in this particular game. But I wanted to see if, looking at all the different games over a course of 51 of them, if there was an association between the more there was a difference in expected win, basically if a stronger player was stronger, if they would get fewer points for the win, and vice versa. If a weaker player won, and would they get more points for beating a stronger player? The next thing I wanted to look at was also look at the point spread for the win loss, and also try to establish if there was a difference in the average meta and how much you would get. In other words, did they weight wins slightly higher than losses so as to control advancing through the leagues? Basically, there's all these different levels that you work through. As you win, you get points. As you lose points. And but as you go play throughout the month, I usually at the beginning of the month I'm usually between 3 and 2 in Diamond League, and by the end of the month I'm usually either at or just about to enter Master League. So that's about 1,000 points there, or maybe a little more than 1,000 points, about 1,300 a month. How do these points gain in? Because if everybody's at their skill level and some people are winning, some people are losing, how are you getting additional points into the system? Moving on, looking at the point gain and loss. After 51 games, you have this uh, spread, and this represents all the losses if you have negative points. This is also a loss too, but this is also a loss from a challenge battle. So if there's a really big difference in who wins or loses, if they think that your opponent is really stronger than you, they don't make you lose any points for losing because they figured it was unfair anyway. And then you've got all my points here from winning. Now the mode is clearly with 20, both 20 points in winning and 20 points in losing. Putting this data together, we can take a look to see if the magnitude, getting the absolute value, the negative point values, and stacking that on top of the values of the positive point values, we still get that kind of bell curve. And it doesn't appear, at least at first glance, that there's any kind of weight towards positive um, on that side. So my theory was kind of falling apart there, weighting the leaderboards. This one under 13, those are only the zeros. So I probably should have colored that differently, like gray or something. Um, Going into the box plots. This one kind of ended that particular hypothesis that I had. The point values are very similar between the spread on the negative values and how they're distributed and the positive values and how they're distributed. Mean is always at 20, so to me that looks like it's a default value. We'll probably see that more when we look at the scatter plots. Standard deviation between both positive and negative, pretty much the same. So there's not much of a difference in the way the computer is divvying out those points. And in fact, if anything, they're slightly lower on the positive side. So, um, and I think I can explain that. Going back into the game, if looking at the leagues, basically as soon as you enter into a new league, for instance, if I get the 3,100 points and I go into Master League, you can't fall down. So if I get here, I got 3,101 points and I lose a match, I won't lose 20 points. I'll only lose the 1 point and I'll be set here at 0. So basically, they're not adding points into the system. They're just not taking points away when they should. So I think that's what causes the positive skew and it causes the meta to grow over the course of the month for the season to actually add points to your progress. And then finally, oh, sorry, not finally, unit power level spread. So look at those 51 games. This is the games that are, back up, I clicked ahead too far. These are the games that are where everyone's matched at 13, level 13 max. So there's no point difference. So I don't care about wins or losses. Obviously, it doesn't make a difference. But for the wins, all these gold ones are wins for me. and I had more power on my deck, and then all these are the losses. And even though there was one loss where someone had less power than my deck, this lends credence to the idea that power level makes a big difference on terms of who wins and who loses. Feeding that into a scatter plot is to Okay, this is the raw data being fed into the scatter plot, placing the power difference in terms of win, lose, and how much more power a particular deck would have over the other person, and putting that plotted against how many points gained or lost at the end of the match. Um, my longer video goes into far more detail about that, so I'm going to skip over how I had to condition this data to bring out um, what is actually the most appropriate way of displaying it. But going here, probably to this right here is probably the best way. And one thing that I'd say is my little bit misleading is too is that this slope is only about this far wide to get it across in terms of how it looks. But that being said, this is still probably the most accurate way of looking at it. There is a negative regression line on both sides, and this lends credence to the idea that as you get further and further away of being more powerful than your opponent, the computer gives you fewer and fewer points um, towards getting a win. And likewise, when you are when you have a loss and you're more of the underdog, you also lose fewer points um, being the underdog, so to speak. So with that, I think that kind of concludes it. Once again, there's far more details about all the ins and outs and how it interacts with the games and other outliers with that longer video. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.